which is turning employee feedback data into a coherent story. And two of our good friends from Scotiabank, Julio and Javier, are you in the room? Come on up, let's get settled, and I'm going to turn it over to you all. This is an interesting topic. Give these folks a hand. Welcome. Yeah, good to meet you. Yeah, you're welcome. Take it away.
Hello. Oh, hey everybody, how are you? Good. Okay, so we come from Scotiabank. Many of you may know us because you're hopefully clients. Scotiabank is, for those who don't know Scotiabank, we are 90,000 employees across the Americas, also some presence in Europe and Asia and Canada and the US. My name is Julio Quiceno. I lead the HR Insights and People Analytics function at Scotiabank.
My name is Javier, and I'm the data scientist of the team.
And the brains behind today's presentation. Alrighty, so let's begin. So what we want to do today is really share a practice or a use case that we have done in the last couple of years of trying to turn employee feedback and opinions and sentiment of employees into a coherent story. That's what we're saying. So we're going to walk through three approaches. The first one is a traditional approach. Then we're going to talk about topic modeling and something that we've been using with Azure AI Studio. This is more of a proof of concept. And then, the pros and cons and what we have seen with this. So just a note of caution when you go from low to high, as you move towards more automation, when you want to make sense of data that is unstructured in the form of text. Of course, you're going to have more flexibility, more scalability, but also you're going to face more complexity in terms of the implementation. All of the issues around, ethics, usage of data, privacy, technology hurdles, vendor hurdles, right? Do you have the technology where you can run this, and how do you go and convince your folks in IT to give you the licenses, et cetera? So, and particularly for a bank, we're very strict in terms of our risk. So it's not necessarily easy to overcome all of those situations. Alrighty, so what is the premise here? Is that there's a tremendous opportunity for people analytics practitioners as well as HR folk of using all of the data that comes through employee channels and make sense of it. There's large quantities of it, and with the mindset that what we can do more with less, right? Many times what we want to have the high-end technology, we want to have the best data in the world, the best platform, and then the reality is that all of this is a practice, and so you have to build the muscle, right? The understanding and practice. So you can see, we have goals, development plans, performance feedback, recognition programs that many companies have where people are writing I recognize you because of this and that. You may have an Ask HR function, centralized operations, and people are writing, this case, agents are answering and so on. Search information, also you have your job descriptions, job postings, policies, documentation, and of course, all of your employee listening. Either because you have life cycle service, you have annual engagement service or annual service where you are collecting all of this rich information that you can trace through time, right? It's not only at one point in time. So, for instance, right now we're going through a huge cultural transformation. So we're working directly with the teams how do you want to measure your cultural transformation, right? So we're sitting down with them and trying to figure it out and using the techniques that we're going to talk about, understanding the adherence. Are people remembering? Are people how are feeling about the culture? So you can use this. This as the premise. Okay, option one, of course. So, during COVID, we sent a survey to all of our employees. We have English, French, and Spanish across our footprint. So we needed to sit down with people who understand, and then we were in a room, not a virtual room, of course, trying to read and making sense of it, similar with the employee service. Of course, all of the stuff is time-consuming. You need to have experts that actually understand the topic matter, and then you go into your tagging, then you go into your categorization, and you try to make sense of all of these situations. And of course, all of this is manual. Can you get value out of it? 100%. But then you cannot segment. So if the business comes back and tells you, okay, what about my front line? What about my customers? What about my executives? What about the people who reside in this location? then I don't have the scalability of the power of doing this. So, but we all done this type of approach. But then we said, okay, so how can we kind of like automate and have it in a better way? So I'm not going to stop here because I guess you guys know how to do this. So option 2. So we say, okay, let's try to use something related to machine learning and artificial intelligence. So that's what we did. So we had 3 challenges or 3 things that we wanted to achieve. Number 1, automate translation. Number 2, and we're not talking about sentiment analysis. We're not there yet. This is the next step, but we're trying to uncover the topics, what people are talking about, and then how do we interpret the meaning of this. So we use a technique called LDA. It's one of the text analytics techniques. There are many, but we chose this one. What is very cool about this technique is what it does is looks at the probability, right, of words coming together within a text. So if you have a bunch of people talking about a specific topic, what the machine model does is that it runs through it and sees the probability of these words coming together. When they come together, it says, okay, I've learned enough. It seems to be like all of these words are coming together, and therefore that's a topic. So it's pretty neat. Now, but in terms of the automation of translations, we have Copilot within the bank, but we use Copilot, and we use a Google Translate library, of course, validated content. And then for the LDA, you have to do all sorts of text preparation, techniques of like taking out small words, corrections, and so on. And then there's some types of things where you have to select the number of topics. You use 2 different techniques where the curves are more close to each other. You say, okay, this is the number of topics that I'm going to use. And then the very cool thing is that we say, okay, what if we put the topics into a large language model or generative AI with Copilot? So it turned out pretty neat. Okay, so what you're seeing right there, topic output sample, that's what it comes after you run this. So as you see, there's a bunch of words that are in rank order. You can see like team, support, perform, etc. So when you read through that, you can say, like, oh, it kind of like makes sense. Traditionally, when you run LDA, you take your topics and then you put that in front of experts so they can actually tell you what it means. Or you can do things like, create like a word cloud or put on a dashboard on a report. Yet, kind of like tells you good information. So that's what you would get as a topic of output sample. But then we took it to the next level, and then we said, okay, so let's take that topic output sample and put it through Copilot. We explain and we prompt to it and say, okay, this is how we came out with this. We applied this technique. This is an employee survey, an engagement survey, and then tell us what it could mean. So the output, this is a storyline that it gives you after you prompt that with generative AI Copilot, right? So it tells you a whole storyline. Boom, very neat. So what we applied through this, so we ran it through our employee engagement survey. So we applied that, and we were able to, provide this type of stories on topics across locations, what people from different countries were saying, across job levels, across job functions, and provide this to HR business partners. So it's easier for them when they go to the leaders that have to read through commentary constantly, or to go through our survey provider and trying to make sense by applying a bunch of filters on their dashboards and trying to make sense of all of that information in a very nice kind of executive summary of how people are feeling. Another way that we use this was we have a recognition program, and they wanted to run a campaign. The campaign is called Keep the Bank Safe. So they wanted to understand if actually we were doing the right thing, if people were actually recognizing others because they were trying to keep the bank safe. When we ran this, interestingly enough, when we saw cross countries, no difference between the topics or what people were saying. Job levels, no difference. But when we ran it through job functions or job families, the clear differentiation came about. People that were from risk were talking about risk type of activities. IT was talking about type of activities. And actually, they used this information to say, actually, it makes sense to run this type of campaigns. So those are a couple of examples. This year, we're doing it with performance, development, the changes of culture. So we're going to apply these techniques. So that's kind of like the option 2. Now I'm going to pass it to Javier because he's going to tell us about option 3.
Okay, thank you, Julio. So I've been asked to not talk in a very technical language, so I'll do my best. So what we tried to do with this option was thinking about scalability. How can we make the option 2, can we bring it to everyone, to the broader public? So I thought about a cloud-based solution. It's called Azure AI Foundry or Studio, both are the same, which is a platform that integrates different capabilities to create machine learning models. From the input to the output, everything can be done there. Includes some capabilities such as text analytics, which is the specific one for this study case, image, video analysis, and of course, large language models. It includes around 1,000 different large language models for different tasks. So in the next slide, I'm going to tell you how the methodology behind it, how it was created. The first step is, of course, starting with the business problem, and from there, we move to creating a data set following the structure of the company. We created a dummy data set with the engagement survey in mind, but all the data were fake for confidentiality and privacy matters. We also took the cultural guidelines, the framework of the bank, and we tried to cross-analyze both files. Once you have the data sources, you can choose the model, the large language model you want to use as a base model for training. And we decided to go for ChatGPT 4.0, which is a good model for chat completion. So because we wanted to put a tool in front of everyone, and a chatbot seems
Business
something
partners.
to be about.
Business partners.
Oh yeah, everyone within the HR
Not everyone.
context. Yeah, HR business partners. So we decided to create a very basic interface, like a chat, where the model was going to learn from the data that was seen. In this case, the cultural guidelines and the engagement survey. You use different tools within this platform to make the model understand your data. And after it has been trained, you have to transform that data, which is text data, into numeric data that is easy for the machine to process. So already you have all the tools, all the ingredients, so now you have to organize them into something called prompt flow. Prompt flow is the number of steps that the bot will accomplish to give you the answer, the desired answer. So the input is the user, in this case, the HR business partners, asking a question. The output will be that answer, and in between, the ingredients. You have to train the model to not only tell you what to do, but also what not to do. And that's important to avoid any misuse or undesired behavior. It's an iterative process. Once you understand the model is doing a good job with the answers, you can deploy the model into another service within this Azure AI Studio platform to make it available for, not everyone, HR business partners, and continue the testing and iteration, because it's a long, it's a back and forth, so you give feedback so you can retrain the model with the feedback and keep going.
So now when you think about the opportunity of this, so Javier was saying that we took the employee engagement, so it's kind of like one of the questions, right? The question that where people talk the most on our cultural values. So, and the machine learned through that stuff. So try to understand that. Now imagine job descriptions, and you upload 150 of your job descriptions, and then you do a mapping of your skills and competencies, and you put the machine to learn through it. And then you prompt something where you can create a job description. Provide me with what could be a potential job description for a level 6 that works as an IT developer. And boom, the thing can give it to you. And so on, you can think about all of these things. I know that goes beyond the cases of people analytics, but we were very intrigued about these possibilities and what we could do for automation for these types of things. So just want to give a couple of examples there. So what are we going to show now, Javier?
And this is the result. So it's a short video where we put some business questions and the answer generated by the bot.
Should I sing? No, I don't. As you can see, Scotiabank is great.
Again, it's dummy data, right? That's it.
No clap? No. Anyway, of course, this is a proof of concept. It hasn't been yet in front of any HRBPs. It's just more about how can we learn about using this type of thing. So the thinking is, okay, so we're applying all of these techniques, but if the library already has the techniques, and then now we have to go and provide the insights to HR business partners, maybe what we can do now is put the tool in front of business partners so they can not only leverage what the information is saying, but using the ChatGPT to create action plans. So it facilitates their life. Anyway, so those are the three options, couple of considerations. Okay, number one, it's approach as a discipline that requires practice. So this whole thing for us is build the muscle, right? And do not wait for perfection, build with the team. This allows you to increase data literacy with your partners, allows you to have more front-facing conversations with the business. By having something like this, you can go and actually build those relationships because they will be interested in testing it out. Second thing is the guiding principles for any model creation, as you know, should be driven by ethical considerations because you're going to find bias, transparency, fairness, and privacy, and of course, all of the legal requirements. This point is important. I mean, this is just a tool. You always have to have your subject matter expert working with you alongside, right? So if you do something related to policies, for instance, you have to have somebody who understands the policies. You're not just going to deploy the technology and let it be, no, right? And then just an observation on how you're approaching your people analytics function. Traditionally, we tend to be very reactive in nature because we are being served the data. Once we serve the data, when we take the data and we make analysis of it. Our thinking is different. We have to be upfront of the discussion, right? So if you're lucky enough to have employee voice sitting in your function, congratulations, because then you can drive the thinking. Not in our case. So we need to build that partnership with them because maybe they're not thinking with a data mindset from the beginning. They're thinking more from a survey point of view. So we're not leveraging all of the opportunities to actually things to like triage when you're doing your surveys. If somebody answers this, then go here. If this person answered the question in the previous survey, then go here, right? Those types of things. So you can get more rich information where you can apply this type of techniques. And then, the significant opportunity to enhance operational efficiency throughout the employee life cycle, this is huge. Somebody asks you about what would I invest in this type of things. You have the ancillary benefits related to HR operational efficiency while you can run all of these types of tools and enhance the insights that you provide to the business. So those are the three things that we wanted to share with you and give some time for questions. I hope this is somewhat useful or inspiring, I hope. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Michal Bam, Metrolinx. Julio, this is pretty impressive. Would it be fair to say that what you are doing here, and Javier, what you've done here is use large language models and AI and Gen AI to really do the interpretation of the verbatim that historically was always done by either someone in internal or outside that would then write up summary. This is the key themes based on having read through hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of.
Man, I love a good communicator. You just summarize everything.
So
Yes,
then
exactly. That's it.
how is this not already scooped up by one of the big players? Because this really seems like the future for replacing, when I would think a lot of us in some point in our careers have read through a lot of employee engagement surveys. This will replace it and then give it to the HRBPs and say, you have a question about your client, here is the insights.
It's quite interesting. In the bank, there are innovation groups, right? So we've talked to a couple of people who have data scientists and this stuff. What they have in imagination, they lack in access of data. So we have the power, right? Because they have, I can tell, but it's not that I actually go and snoop, don't think that. But I can tell what you answer in your employee survey. I know what was your raise, I know your performance, I know the commentary. They don't have access to that information. So the beauty about these things is where you can collaborate with those areas that are working directly with the business and enhance that type of activity. Second myth is that you cannot build it on your own. I mean, at scale is different, but for this type of use cases where you want to give it to a specific number of groups of people to support their function, this works like a charm. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people working on these things because those techniques are typical techniques that they teach in advanced analytics programs. But I think it's more about having that creativity and the understanding of the data that is behind the employee life cycle.
Hello, I'm over here. I got a question over here.
Yes, sir.
At AstraZeneca, we're working on a very similar use case with topic modeling, and one of the things that we're just working through right now is what does it look like for the next employee survey? So obviously you have a use case which handles like the employee survey and feedback and breaks it down into the topics and everything like that, but what is your approach for the next survey? And so you can start to look at insights across how has leadership changed over the past 2 years and things like that?
Sure. So one of the things that we're trying is get into a conversation with strategic partners to guide the definition and design of the questions. That's number one. Second, understanding the full life cycle, because you have, exit survey, new hire survey, new to manager survey, all of these things. So how are you going to make sense the end-to-end employee life cycle experience and how you bring that data together? So it's how do you influence that activity and leverage the technologies and the possibilities of those technologies. We want to, on top of topic modeling, doing sentiment analysis. Because you want to create differentiation across segments where you say, while these people are talking about this topic, the percentage of people who are talking high and low, like positive or negative, are these guys. And these are the characteristics. These are their type of engagement. These are the drivers of engagement. So this is where you start applying all of those techniques. But we are trying to embed more sales of strategic partners with them. Because otherwise, I'm just an open-ended question. Tell us more about what you think doesn't help me. If they ask, are we in a culture of innovation? And how? And then I get subsequent feedback from people, then I can use that information in a better way. That answers, I hope? Okay.
Hi, I think
Hi.
I'm next. Hello. My name's Kat. Thank you for this demo and everything. It's really a cool application. So I'm going to ask two kind of questions about your choice of using the LLM for this. Firstly, how do you protect against hallucinations? I'm thinking particularly with HRBPs. There's no way for them to suddenly read the thousands of employee responses and check the accuracy. So I'm curious how you've gone about like kind of testing or I guess training in terms of preventing the adoption, during adoption of preventing hallucinations being misinterpreted. And my second question is, have you considered like looking at graphical representations and models as well as LLMs where you could have like a logical inference? One thing I notice is that everything is text, which obviously this is text data, but with engagement surveys, we often have like 57% of your employees agree with blah, blah, whatever. is there a way that you're thinking you could embed the numbers as well, potentially, to have like a logical inference?
I can take part of it. Yes, it's possible within the platform. Not the thing with large language models is with text, it does a really good job. But sometimes making simple math calculation, it's awful. So to avoid that behavior, you can put another layer of, in that case, you have to use a programming language. It could be Python, where you ask the question to the bot and ask the bot to generate the code that will give you the answer in Python. Then you put that information in Python, you process, and then you put the answer from Python back into the model, into the large language model, and give you the answer to the user. So it's possible to answer numeric questions into the bot, and that could be like a next step for that. And I know there are some services where you can actually put graphics too. So it's a pay as you go service. So it will also increment your cost, right? That's another consideration.
Cool. To the first question, there's a lot of validation that you need to do, right? This is why it's so important to continuously practice and practice and practice. On the second option, that is the one that we have played more and more, we had validation across translation. Then we had to reread all of the commentary to ensure that actually makes sense. So either you take a sample of it, or you take a segment and read all of the commentary and repeat the option first, which is regular people reading it and say, does this make sense? The cool thing that we found about this analytics topic modeling technique, it's that in the aggregate, tells you a story, right? And identifies things that you might not be even reading because you're not perceiving them, right? And that's why we really like the thing, it's the probability of words coming together as a semantic unit. So that's what we found very cool. But of course, a lot of hesitation for people to say, and then we're talking about, 40,000, 25,000 commentaries. So it builds the story. Yeah. Once you get into it, specific details is a completely different thing. Okay. So we're 58 seconds. So thank you so much, guys, for paying attention to us and indulging with us.
Thank you.